comment.
You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos, part of the Stake in the Plains Content Network and the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. Just a couple of casino caballeros talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio.
Welcome in to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson alongside Tech Hoops Guy today. I don't know why you can't comment, Kyle, but right when you say we're good to go live, I hit live and then we go live. I don't know if you know how that works.
Yeah, it's all good.
If you want to gear up for Texas Tech athletics, you can go to cardinalsports.com, mycardinalsports.com, or in live person action right outside the loop on Slide Road. Go shop the vault. That's all I'm going to say today. Go shop the vault. It's Father's Day. Shop the vault.
People, it's probably about that time of year where most folks maybe need some golf gear.
Oh, yeah.
They've got that at Cardinals. Tech Hoops Guy, do you golf at all? You're muted, Tech Hoops Guy.
Love golf. Like golf.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Big golf guy.
Big
What's
golf
your
guy.
handicap?
Right now, probably like a 15, 16.
Yeah.
Did y'all see that pro golfer who went off as an 8.8 in like a $70,000 Calcutta? There's a guy named JB Holmes, and it was I don't know where exactly, but the pool for this Calcutta, it was a 6-man scramble with $70,000. He went under the name Jonathan Bradley and entered as an 8.8 handicap, played in it and won. They ended up catching him, but yeah. It reminded me when you asked me what my handicap was. At one time I had an 8. I was an 8, and this was like a couple of years ago.
I feel like if you play enough to know your handicap, you're pretty good. It's better than the normal guy.
Yeah.
Roy says, "Where's the hat?" And then Kyle put on the hat, so we're good there. All right, we're here to do an NCAA regional preview. I've got the odds for some of the Big 12 regionals. I know you two are much more in tune with the stats than I am, so let's just get going. Where do you guys want to start? You want to start away from the Big 12 and then funnel back, or do you just want to start at the top and move down?
Let's lightning round non-Big 12. I don't think there's probably a ton of interest outside that. Unless there is an intriguing regional for one reason or another. Let's start there and then whittle our way down, if y'all are cool with that.
Yeah. Do you want to start with the Wake Forest regional?
Sure.
Kyle, did you have it pulled up? Because I just said I have the Big 12 ones pulled up.
No, I don't have anything pulled up. But fun fact, did you know that Wake Forest is not located in Wake Forest, North Carolina?
Is it not?
It's in Winston-Salem. But there is a Wake Forest. It's I think the county seat of Wake County. I think it used to be there a long time ago, and then they moved to Winston-Salem. Wake
Forest is unbelievable this year. Talented. And it's kind of obvious before the season. But what strikes me about that regional is Maryland is actually really, really good too. They've got some good – they're not a Big Ten team like your traditional one. And so they haven't lost a Big Ten series in over 2 years. It'll be till 2024 that they've lost one. And so they get sent there while they roll through the Big Ten, win the Big Ten tournament, and Iowa, they get sent to the number 1 overall seed. Meanwhile, Iowa gets sent to Indiana State. Doesn't make any sense, but that's the only Maryland's really good. They've got a Friday night. They've got a big guy that pitched for Team USA, over the summer. If they save him, they probably won't, but if they do, then that could give Wake Forest a run for their money. I make Wake Forest about 70% to win that regional.
Yeah, I can't remember if Maryland actually hosted last year, but I remember them being very much in the host conversation. So
yeah,
they must have a good program. I did see, though, Wake Forest, I think plus 350 to win it all at Circa. And in my opinion, that is not good value for any one team. Like, I think even Tennessee last year, which was like the most hyped college baseball team of all time going into the postseason, might have been about the same odds. And I just don't feel the same way about Wake Forest. And, of course, Tennessee didn't win it all either. But I would not bite at that if I was thinking championship odds.
Definitely not. Agreed.
Are you generally a pitch backwards kind of guy in these regionals, Tech Hoops guy?
I am. I mean, I think it almost I think that brings up a good point for our regional, right? the SWAC team is just almost always the worst team in this tournament. And so for Florida to draw Florida A&M and get the worst team in the tournament, it allows them to like you're saying, not throw their number one guy. And I mean, I think that, they're going to be 97% to win that game, no matter who they throw. And so them being 1-0 at home with all three of their guys just makes it brutal for Tech. Like there really is not a situation that could have been worse from a host perspective, other than, I guess, Wake Forest. But when you look at UConn, that's actually kind of a break for us. But the host situation is not a break. So maybe it evens out.
We'll get to that. I know Kyle has some thoughts on the pitching there. The Clemson regional, that is Clemson versus Lipscomb and Tennessee versus Charlotte in that matchup.
I make Clemson that they're the 4 or 5 seed overall, and they're one of the lowest that a percentage to advance out of any of the hosts. I've got them like 37%, and that's just because they got Tennessee in there.
Wow. And
Tennessee's got just 3 power arms, and Charlotte's good, and actually Lipscomb is good. Lipscomb has a couple. These tournaments, the saying, people say it like you're just as good as the arm you've got, and some of these teams will fire every bullet in game 1. So like Lipscomb's got guys that they've thrown on Friday and Saturday who look really good on paper, and if you're Tennessee, you might see both of those guys just in game 1. And it makes it just kind of interesting when some of the 4 seeds that have like a dominant guy versus some of the ones that don't. And you're not catching a break when you run into a team that's got somebody. And that's Clemson and Tennessee and Lipscomb. Even Charlotte. Charlotte has a really good Friday guy as well. It's a tough regional.
Is that one of the longer odds for a 1 seed?
Yeah, to get out of the regional.
Yeah.
That it's the only one that's probably, like, Indiana State's not the favorite and they're hosting. But other than that, that's probably the longest odds to advance. Yeah, it is. Actually, I've got Coastal right there too with them. And Oklahoma State, unfortunately, they got just region of death there. Washington is really good. Washington's one of those teams that kind of reminds me of like a vintage Tech basketball team, like really old. Everybody's like 23. They've got multiple really good pitchers. DBU's got really good arms. And then Oral Roberts, all they do is just beat Oklahoma State every time they play them. And I think they've won like 50 games already. That's a tough regional for sure. Like look at OU, for example. I mean, they're in a better situation than us by far. They're in Charlottesville playing Virginia. It's Virginia, ECU, Army. Army is good enough to where Virginia's going to have to throw a guy.
Yeah.
So that's a huge factor, whereas Florida's not. It's tough, but it's baseball, man. There's so much randomness. People. I listen to like the Lubbock sports talk radio, and everybody's kind of like negative and down, and it's like I know, but it's still baseball, right? I mean, like Florida's one of the best teams in the country, and like if Tech played them anywhere in the country, we still have like a 35% chance of winning, like at worst.
Yeah,
which is we've certainly got a chance if we get in that game.
Just through those regionals in the Big 12 that you mentioned right there, Oral Roberts is plus 450, which would be the tightest odds from a 1 seed to a 4 seed in the Big 12 regionals. The Texas Tech one, Florida A&M, is plus 6,000 to minus 140-140. That's the biggest gap. So it's not like you're playing with some really good teams up and down like other regionals are. You're just in a bad spot as far as the host goes, because not only are they good, they're good at home.
Oh, yeah. I will say that their environment was really good. They have kind of a UT vibe in terms of like really weak environments. And everybody was kind of like, what's going on? I mean, they have this great players, program, ballpark, and it's just not like SEC. It's not like your typical SEC venue, but it was better this year, and I'm sure it'll be great this weekend. What was interesting is them not choosing the late game, which is the dumbest thing you can do. I mean, not choosing the early game. One of the dumbest things you can do, because the best case scenario is Tech plays, wins, and thunderstorms just, the whole tournament washes out. And so Tech's 1-0 and everybody else is scrambling. And like that can happen if you don't play that early game. It doesn't make any sense why, Tadlock would never play the late Friday game ever.
No.
It happened to us last year in Statesboro. Andrew Morris pitched. He was a starting pitcher in game 1, and he pitched a third of an inning before it got postponed until the next day. And then Hampton had to come in as the de facto starter, and he pitched really well. So, it worked out okay. You didn't win that game, but yeah, that's why Tadlock, the fans always hate it in game 1 of that regional because they want to get off work and go Friday night. But he always insists on playing that early game exactly for that same reasoning. It lessens the impact that weather can have.
What you were quoting those Oral Roberts odds. So plus 450, that only needs like maybe 16, 17, 18% chance for that to be like a break even bet. And I've got them 17.4, that's pretty close. Oral Roberts, maybe I have them kind of highlighted here for a reason.
Yeah. And I don't know where these numbers are from. I got them in an article. I could not see the book listed. They did not say the book. So these are all.
That's the number. That is the number. I'm looking at them now. And the only place that I'm aware of regional odds for every team that's in the regional is a paperhead line feed for like local underground bookies. I've not seen any. I posted on Twitter a screenshot of the Tech one, and that's what that's from.
Interesting. You heard it here first. That's why we have you on. You know all the numbers. So we have, let's finish with Gainesville, but Coral Gables, I don't think we've talked about that one much yet. Texas number 2 in that regional plus 170. Miami the favorite at plus 130. They're the home team, but who do you expect to get out of that one?
So Texas, unfortunately, probably has a pitching edge, but they're not playing at home, and Miami's really good otherwise, and Miami still has good arms. It's but the Friday guy. But see, we're in a regional, so Texas is probably going to be tested enough by Louisiana to where they're going to throw Lucas Gordon on Friday, and he's the best pitcher in that tournament, and so that's really kind of irrelevant to Miami when you think about it that way. But I make Miami a pretty considerable favorite, like 47%. UT about 30. And Louisiana's tough, man. They're really being third in the Sun Belt is basically it's like they're power 4 or 5 in baseball. They're in it. They finished third in the Sun Belt behind Coastal and Southern Miss, who are 2 of the best teams in the country. Louisiana's no joke. But Texas, they're sneaky good, man. The Lucas Gordon is really good. Their Saturday guy is really good. They've got a deep bullpen. They're old. Yeah. There's a reason why they swept us.
Because Brandon Beckel was suspended?
In West Virginia. Yeah, it's true. So I keep wanting to get back to our regional. To me, the biggest thing, the biggest thing that I'll be watching is whether or not we can beat UConn, but score enough runs early while we're doing that to allow Tadlock to not use Beckel. And I think it's just he's kind of conservative, and UConn's good. It's just gonna be really tough for us to meet that threshold, whatever that is in Tadlock's mind, for us to not use him, Beckel. And it's like UConn. They're really kind of trying to figure out what they're good at. The one thing that really stands out about them is they work counts. And so what it takes, one thing I'll do is look and see the first 70 to 80 pitches in the game, how many outs does that generate against, how many outs are recorded? And for them, it's 75 to 80 pitches only records about 13 outs against UConn. It's one of the best in the country. So they really just work counts. They don't have any superstar guys. They don't have any elite pitching. Their schedule's not that good. They got super lucky because some of the Northeast teams that they play in these midweeks that usually should tank your RPI, like Northeastern and Boston College, actually are would be the best wins on our schedule somehow, So they just got lucky in that sense in their scheduling. But while they're beating up on these, they went 40 plus games. While they were doing that, they did so by really working counts. And so they're very similar to Tech in that regard because we do a good job of that as well.
I think they're kind of like a Moneyball team is their strength. They get on base. Like the 9th best guy in their lineup bats .265, which isn't good. But for the worst guy in your lineup, that's pretty solid. And if what I've read is correct, they're pretty good at stealing bases. And so 1 through 9 can all get on base, and then they can work your defense that way by stealing extra bases. So if I had to kind of like peg what's the hallmark of this team, what makes them good, that would probably be it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to be objective as I could today, but there are 5 position, like if I was just drafting a team from Tech and UConn's lineups, my first 5 picks would be Tech players. So I mean, they would take till the 6th pick to where I would even get to a UConn guy. And then when you get to, and then so then like on Mason Molina is a lot better than who they're going to throw. No matter who they throw, he's a lot better. So, this is why I don't like the RPI, and they're whatever they are in the RPI, but they're not as good as us, and they're not. You're quoting those odds. They're the bigger underdog for a reason. I wish we could find a metric that actually captures how good the teams are. Because it doesn't really. 3 seeds should not really be favorites over 2 seeds.
Even if you flipped Texas Tech and UConn, it still doesn't quite make sense for where they're located. Because I don't think Texas Tech's in the snake draft that good to be in the 2 seed spot anyways. What I was going to ask was, you think Molina's being thrown the first day against UConn?
I don't know that for sure. I would guess so, but I would put it at maybe 80% yes.
Wow. Did you listen to our last episode? It's okay if you didn't.
I did not. No.
Who would you pitch game 1 if you're Tim Tadlock, and what's the reasoning behind it?
That's a good question. I would throw Molina game 1 because we've done that all year. He's our best on paper, and if you don't win the first game, we have no chance of winning the regional. But I would also do it because Kyle Robinson has like the kind of quote unquote stuff to actually like go toe to toe with a Florida lineup. Like him going out there at 6'27" or whatever he is, and he can throw 96. And we kind of really set him up for this. He hasn't really been extended, and then last week we extend him, and so now he's kind of like on schedule to throw 80 or 90 pitches a week from when he started, which is when that game would be. So we've really kind of like, if you asked me that question and we hadn't already set it up the way we have, I might have a different answer. But we're like, the train is like on the tracks in some ways to me, in terms of Molina game 1, Robinson game 2, and I'd be like just excited to see him go out there because, when you're playing Florida there, and they're going to have a guy that it doesn't matter who they pitch, he's going to be throwing 100 miles an hour in the first inning, and he's going to be having, just like alien sliders and stuff at our guys. And I want to have something that like looks like that on the other side. And that's Robinson or Girton, but Girton, like, I don't know if he exists anymore.
Not in that spot, I don't think. That would be pretty impressive to come back out of the bullpen game 2 against Florida. You're 1-0. And then that would take some massive huevos from Tim Tadlock to put Girton on the mound first.
No, I think Girton is like your game 5 starter if you
like
start 2-2.
Yeah, like for the storyline.
Or 3-1.
Yeah.
So on our episode, not to rehash this too much because some of our listeners already heard that, I would start Tabor Fast game 1. How stupid do you think that is? Do you want me to explain the logic?
Well, before you do, I would, if we did that, I would make us an underdog in the game. I would have, we would go from being a favorite to an underdog. So like that.
How about Petty?
I don't know what logic you can get at me that would override that part of my brain saying like, okay, we're doing something that now decreases our chances of winning.
How about Zane Petty?
So, but why though? Why do you want to save pitching?
Well, because you're hung up on the game, like that it decreases our chance of winning that game. And I'm thinking of the entire thing of what gives you the best odds to win the regional, which is the ultimate goal. Like I could structure it in a way that prolongs you losing the regional and like makes you the best odds to win 2 games, but like the objective is to win 3, like go 3-0 or 4-1 to get out of the regional. And so the way I see it, you're probably going to have to beat Florida twice unless somebody does the dirty work for you and like UConn beats them, in the 1-0 game or something like that. The other way I think about it is we can pitch anybody against Florida A&M if you start 0-1 and win that game. And so if you need to beat,
we won't though. No one's done that. Like people say that and then they throw backwards, and when you lose and you play the 4 seed and your season's on the line, they throw their ace.
I know they do. I know they do, and they shouldn't, because like you're saying, we have no shot against Florida unless one or both of Kyle Robinson and Mason Molina pitch. And so, like, why on earth would you waste that arm against Florida A&M when you need it for Florida to get out of the regional? Like, it increases your odds of going 2 in Q. I will concede that, but it also lowers your odds of winning the regional, which is the ultimate objective.
And I hear what you're saying. To me, that winning the regional, like is very equal to going 2-0. Like the odds of winning the regional and your odds of going 2-0 are very close. It's just very difficult to win if you don't go 2-0 when you're playing on the road against.
If you have your 3 best starting pitchers for games 3, 4, and 5, though, that's certainly a better spot than.
Yeah, I guess if you ran if you're looking at it, the amount of teams that are winning a regional in a game 5 is so small that it's almost like not a contingency worth planning for in game 1. That's just my opinion. I think UConn is definitely good enough to where we have to throw like a real guy like against them. We 100% have to throw a real guy. And part of that's because they don't have strong pitching, but the guy that they do throw, he generates a lot of swing and miss. And he's a lefty. He's enough to mess with us. He's every bit as good as like that. He's a righty, but like that Kansas, that 23-year-old COVID senior Kansas guy. But just to your point though, I'm looking. So Zane Petty is, there's really no difference on paper between him and Beckel and Robinson. So, but that's just on paper. Like the eye test, I know there's a difference between him and Beckel and Robinson. It's very, very apparent. You can, to me, but to your point, there's not a huge difference on paper. I don't think, but we're almost just kind of like Tadlock. He's not ever going to do that, right? He's never going to throw Taylor past game 1.
No, I know.
He will pitch backwards when it makes sense, though.
I think you gotta trust your bats, and you look at UConn. There's no elite pitching. Like 2 of the 3 best starters have an ERA north of 5, and that's playing one conference opponent that would have been better than like 8th place in the Big 12.
They also have a very pitcher-friendly park. UConn does extremely. So
UConn's park is pitcher-friendly.
Exactly. So
their guys' ERA is still north of 5.
Correct.
So why would you waste Mason Molina against UConn if you know you can score 8 runs on UConn no matter who's pitching on your side?
Because number one, that's not the case. You don't know that.
Well, okay, you're pretty confident. And like if you can't,
I know, but I don't think we're pretty confident about that.
I am.
I know you are, but this is a coin flip. I mean, it is. It's for the most part a coin flip game. I said I would take 5 guys before I got to a UConn guy, but the margins in college baseball are very, very small.
I guess my counter to that is like if your bats can't get it done versus UConn, then does the starting pitching even matter? Because like to me, this team is one that like the bats need to produce and the pitching needs to be good enough. Like we're not going to win a game 2-1 in this regional anyway. We might win a game 8-6 though, or 9-7.
No, we definitely could win a game 2-1 in this regional, and it's the worst. it's the nightmare scenario of Molina, UConn wearing out Molina, him throwing 100 pitches through 5 innings, Beckel coming in and throwing 60 pitches through 2 more innings, and then us using every bullet possible because we're scared that we can't beat UConn.
I mean, I know that it's like theoretically possible, and it happened versus K-State. We lost to them 3-2, and I was like, how does this team as constructed lose a game 3-2? But like if you're playing the odds, and again, thinking about the ultimate goal of winning the regional, you have to trust your bats against UConn and FAMU and not use your ace, at least in the first game. Because like you'll get a second crack at UConn if you lose game one, and then throw Robinson or Molina or one of your good arms to stay alive. But like to me, the 0-0 game is the second lowest pressure game in the regional. The lowest pressure game is when you get to play the 4 seed if you're the host, or in the 0-1 game. So it makes no sense to me to use up your ace in one of those two spots. Now, having said that, I know that Tadlock isn't going to change how he operates. And I see the flip side. You can get bounced a lot sooner if you go my strategy, but I think it also maximizes your odds of doing something that's already unlikely, and that's winning the regional, which you have maybe a 20-25% chance of doing, I guess.
Possibly. You know, if you really tried to run, like, you ought to do this. You ought to do the mental exercise of, doing like game one. If we throw Molina, this is how many times I think we win. If we don't throw him, this is what it decreases our chances by, and like gaming it out. Because if you like just dropping your chances in game one by like 5%, it has a humongous impact over like the course of the tournament, simulating out. Like it's a very, very, very big impact. Just like the small, because I mean, I'm looking at, I got a guy who really takes this serious and has access to a lot of information, like stuff that a lot of people don't. And he'll run like 100,000 simulations with the pitchers that we put in. And he's got UConn winning 50.7% of the time with Molina throwing against their number one guy. So, I mean, I don't really agree with him there. I don't think he's that far off, and like the betting market doesn't think he's that far off either. But if he's right, or if he's just a little bit wrong, and it's more like the market, and the difference between Molina and Petty is like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9%, then there's just no way you can catch up on the tail end by saving pitching. And
is that as simple as it's a left-handed pitcher and our lineup is just not as good against lefties?
I think actually, I don't know if that's the case. They are as good, just because of Cash isn't as good. Austin Green is much better left-handed. I think those are two of the primary reasons why Hester isn't as good against a left-handed guy. But that's in play. If you ask this guy, I guarantee you that'd be in play. Like if Andrew Sears isn't throwing for them and they're throwing the righty, then these numbers would change tremendously. It's the same go, but it's really just like Molina's that good.
Wait, so do you think Andrew Sears is going to be their starting pitcher on Friday?
Yeah.
6.25 ERA in a pitcher-friendly park.
Yeah. Hey, I bet on guys with high ERAs all the time. Look at Florida. So I was listening to Jay Johnson, LSU's coach, and people were kind of getting critical of him and LSU's pitching. And they had just played Florida in a series. And he's like, guys, did y'all not just see who rolled through here last week? It's the 3 best arms in college baseball. Every one of them have ERAs over 6. Like, pitching's hard. College baseball's random. There's ways to kind of filter out the noise of ERA. And so, like, you can do that with Sears, his, like, defensive, if a defensive independent ERA, like what he should get on batted balls, is 3.93. He's got a 74 strikeout to 23 walk ratio. I mean, that is like, and he pounds the zone. I mean, like UConn's philosophy is totally opposite from Tech's. Totally opposite. We throw 3-1 sliders in the dirt on purpose. Like they are pounding the zone, which actually I like our lineup against a team who has that philosophy personally.
Me too.
Don't get me wrong. I'm over here like defending UConn. I like us more than the market. I like us more than people I pay to help me like bet college baseball. I like Tech in this game for the reasons that you're like, for the same reasons why you want to throw Zane Petty is I like you. I like us in this game, but I don't think I would throw Zane Petty.
I think if the
logic though is still like could be flipped. Why not throw Molina and like throw Zane Petty against Florida? If you like, you know what I mean?
I would throw K-Rob game 2.
Yeah, I'm saying in the future. You're worried about game 7. I'm talking about, you know what I mean? Like, why don't we throw Petty in game 5?
Well, I'm planning for all contingencies and trying to map out your most likely scenario of winning the regional. And I don't think that involves throwing Molina against a guy with a 6.25 ERA versus Little Sisters of the Poor in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I think you should save your ace.
The most likely is going 2-0. There is almost no chance of us not winning the regional going.
But that's the most likely way to win it, but that's not the most likely outcome through our first 2 games. And so I think you have to account for some of that.
Maybe a question from the audience here. Question for Tech Hoops Guy. Does the Florida Stadium play small? I think it's one of the most home run, easy stadiums, opposite of last year's Georgia Southern Regional.
We've got it as 1.028, so 3% more runs than the normal school, than the normal College Park. It's almost right at Tech's. It's a little bit, plays a little bit bigger than Tech's. Much smaller. So just, I mean, like, it plays small. It would be the short answer. Like the without getting into the weeds, because like it plays smaller than Stillwater. So Stillwater, is a bandbox. But a lot of that depends on the weather. Like, is it going to be super humid? What time of day you're playing. But it plays pretty small. But it also kind of plays small because Florida's got some dudes that hit it out of the ballpark. I mean, they've got like, they have multiple guys who are going to be first round picks, like top 10 or 15 picks in the draft at some point when their amateur career is over. What's interesting about Florida is they have a two-way guy. So, they have a two-way guy who's probably going to be like a top pick. And, teams always throw their two-way guys on Sunday because you don't want to throw them on Friday. And then he has to play in the field for the rest of the weekend. So when they're pitching backwards, they can't just, if you're pitching backwards, you're like, okay, we'll throw our Sunday guy against Florida A&M. Well, they probably won't do that.
I did not know about him until I was looking at stats, and I was like, okay, their best starting pitcher ERA-wise is 4.14, Jack Cagliano. And then I pull up their lineup, and I was like, guy with the same name has an ops of 1,100, and double-digit home runs. I was like, okay, this cat is pretty good.
Did you see the Florida player early in the year that hit the home run and got in trouble for celebrating? So the next time he hit a home run, he walked, or his teammate walked that was him.
Okay, yeah.
Like doing the robot across.
That was funny, yeah.
That was Caglione, yeah. So what's the dream scenario for Texas Tech watching the Florida A&M game? Is it that Florida throws bullpen and has to throw 6 guys because FAMU's got a couple home runs?
Yeah, they have 3 Beckles. They've got 3 of them. And so I guess the dream scenario would be for Florida A&M to somehow cause them to have to throw one of these guys. One guy's last name is Abner. Another guy's name is Fisher. Those are two of the first guys they bring out. And they all throw like 98. It's honestly, it's like embarrassing what Florida has. And there's been like a lot of controversy if you follow like college baseball. Some of the like nerds will say that they're misusing their pitchers. They're not throwing like pitches the way they should. And Florida pitchers will like interact with the tweets, and be like liking them, saying like their pitching coach is dumb. Like we have 6 ERAs and we throw like 100 miles an hour, and we've got sliders that could play in the MLB right now. And we're getting, we have a 6 ERA, and it's because we're not throwing. So there's some drama over there, but I mean, they're still the number 2 seed. Yeah, it's, I could see though, a dream scenario would be Molina, us just getting out early, hot, Molina throwing like 60 pitches, being able to throw on a Monday, Kyle's mythical game 6. You can throw Molina in that game if you get out of it, if you need to, and then getting a win without having to throw Beckel or Robinson. Because like honestly, it won't surprise me if we're in a dogfight. Ted Luck said we're going to throw Robinson game 1 or 2, and UConn does what they do and wears Molina out through like 4 innings. You could see Robinson. And then you could see Beckel. Like we could be playing on Saturday with Robinson, Beckel, and Molina burned. Like that's the worst case scenario with a win.
That'd be so bad. But a lot of our fans would want to do it because in their minds, getting to 1-0 is the most important thing, not winning the regional.
Because it's pretty important, man. I mean, it's
like, hard. It's hard when you're 0-1. It's harder when you have no pitching against one of the best teams in the country at their place.
I'm trying to think of the analogy because it's like you're very worried about like this horrific scenario of us coming from 0-1 and being like, oh, it's actually be better for us. We lose to UConn, we can throw me against Florida A&M, and then we'll be in great shape. Like that's almost like that's like
no. I'm not saying you'll be in great shape at any point in this regional. I'm trying to minimize the damage. Okay, so would you agree with me that one way or another, the most likely, probably 70% shot that you start 1-1 through your first 2 games?
Yeah. Oh, I would. Yeah, I'd say. Well, yeah, I'd say 70. That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. And then is it more likely that you go 0-2 or 2-0?
No,
or are they
it's
about
much
equally
higher than
likely?
that. I'm sorry. It's probably much higher than that because of Florida A&M. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's so. Okay, let's call it 80%.
Yeah.
And then maybe about 10% each that you go 0-2 or 2-0.
Yeah.
So you guys are planning on something that we all just agreed has a 10% chance of happening, and like mapping this out as if you can start 2-0. I'm saying more realistically, you're probably not. Especially, obviously, if you lose game 1 and you've got FAMU game 2, I would not use any pitching there.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the counter is like, well, not doing what we're doing takes that 10 and cutting it in half is not good. You know, going down that's bad, right?
But you're going to start 1-1 regardless, most likely. We just agreed on that. And so, like, from 1-1, how do you win the regional?
And from from sitting here now, that's the case. But if you throw all your best guys and you win that game, now you're on Saturday saying it doesn't matter who we throw. We got 30% chance of going 2-0, which means we got about 30% chance of playing a super regional. Like, because to be honest, like there's a part of me that would almost prefer to see Robinson throw against Florida. I mean, I was there in person. I watched him throw 90 pitches in Minute Maid against an A&M lineup that's honestly, it's like one of the best in the country right now. And it wasn't maybe not playing that way then, but still the same guys. And I mean, he's throwing 97 in his 80th pitch. And he was doing this. I mean, I
could agree with that. He's up and down. Like his ERA isn't as good as Molina's, obviously, but his, I don't know, 2 or 3 best performances are probably better than Molina's 2 or 3 best performances. So if we think he's your best pitcher and you view it from that mindset, then quote unquote save him for Florida in game 2 and use Molina game 1. I'd be more on board with it if I was at practice every day and I thought Kyle Robinson was our best pitcher, I'd be more comfortable employing that strategy.
You could argue measurable wise, you are pitching backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, with Petty too, like the stuff is there, but just the experience and consistency is not.
All right, moving on from the Tech Regional, if I gave you even odds for West Virginia to move on and TCU to move on, who would you go for?
1 second.
TCU in Fayetteville, they're plus 300.
Wait, so what?
Yeah, I'll give you even odds. West Virginia's plus 230, but
yeah, so you said TCU's plus 300. That means it would require 25% chance. I've got that spot on, 25.7 chance of winning.
Okay.
In West Virginia, they are in what regional are they in?
Lexington.
28%. So I guess I'm taking West Virginia to go farther. But TCU playing better as of late.
They're hot.
They're in a really, really tough regional though. Like Santa Clara is one of the better 4 seeds in the whole tournament, and maybe even the best 4 seed in the tournament. Which I'm kind of talking backwards. That we just discussed how having a strong 4 seed is actually helpful for you in some ways when you're the 2 or the 3. Like you don't want them to be like super strong and be able to beat you, but at the same time you need them to at least cause the 1 seed to like have to show up, And we're not that like that's why it's I was like saying cuss words, when we were revealed, just because it's like
it was FAMU.
Yeah. And Kyle loves numbers. I mean, FAMU's got a guy with some great numbers.
I haven't even looked at their roster yet.
They've got a guy, but he's pitching in the SWAC. I mean, the SWAC is like a totally different. Did you see the golf regional that Tech was in by chance? The SWAC team that qualified was 80 strokes away from advancing. 80.
Jeez.
Like, and that's the disparity there, and that it kind of translates to baseball as well.
Yeah, so they're like the play-in 16 seed in the basketball tournament.
But it's not even. It's even worse than that. Basketball, they are like
they're like 14 and 17, and they won their conference tournament.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, no, I haven't looked at FAMU. I was only looking at UConn and Florida.
So you were talking about, I make the median run scored in the Tech game around 13, which is pretty high, very high scoring. I like us in the first game. I like us in this first game. I think it wouldn't be surprised if I'm having to bet an over if like the total for our game is 12.5 or something.
Is it a statistical anomaly that a number 1 seed hasn't won a national championship in 25 years?
Yeah, probably. If you really, maybe not. There's probably some years where the 1 seeds aren't. But if you're thinking about the last couple of years where you've got Tennessee, Arkansas, and now Wake, and each one of them are going into the tournament with like an implied probability of like a 20% chance of winning it, then it's like there's no way that should happen. If you have a 20% chance over 25 years, you should win like 4 or 5 times, right? And they haven't. I don't know if that's been the case over the whole 25 years, but certainly it is. Yeah, I don't buy into that. Like I've heard people be like, I'm not, I'm betting against Wake Forest, or that has nothing to do with Wake Forest's chances of winning this year. It's literally nothing. Like the fact that they're the 1 seed has nothing to do with,
That's a good just gambling topic. Like when people look at quote unquote trends, they'll be like, oh, well, like the last 6 Thursday night games have gone under. It's like, well, like there might be something there because it's like a short rest, but like because Jacksonville and Denver went under a week ago doesn't mean that Minnesota and Washington. But people look at that, they're like, oh yeah, like it's 12-1 over the last 25 years when you dice it this way. I think that's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, and almost all those people are like affiliates for sports books. It's the sports books that are putting out that information. They just need talking, a reason for someone to bet on something.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that stuff is total nonsense.
Well, it's like, I don't know, just put yourself in the mind of the odds maker. Like you think they don't know that Thursday night games tend to be lower scoring when they set the total. So like just because the last 3 went under doesn't mean it's going to go under every week.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what is a good trend, Kyle?
What's that?
That Rahino barbecue is delicious on Saturdays. Rahino barbecue open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Get your orders in before 9 a.m. online, RahinoBBQ.com. They've got they had pork belly burn-ins last weekend that looked amazing. They will be open for the Texas Tech game. Go out there, get some barbecue, watch the Texas Tech game at 11 a.m. Friday. Get your order in. You just walk right up, get your order, and sit down and watch the game.
So about the average age of a UConn plate appearance this year is over 22 years old. They're a COVID, one of the last vestiges of the COVID stuff. Whereas a team like Tech or some of the teams like in these Power 5 conferences, we don't really, our guys go play pro ball. We don't get the benefits of that. They've got multiple 23 and 24-year-old guys.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sensible counterpoint is like baseball players, especially more so than basketball, are incentivized to leave early if they can because they lose a lot of draft leverage if they stay through their senior year. So my counterpoint would be all of those guys weren't drafted highly and so like kind of low ceiling type players. They might be experienced, but probably none of them have the talent. Like you were saying, if you drafted players from each roster in order, none of them, not none of them, but few of them probably have the same talent level as Cash, Harrelson, Bazell, whoever you want to say.
Pester, yeah. Green. And actually, I would take Vuletic right now as a hitter, not necessarily in the field because I'm sure I'd rather have their shortstop, over him. But right now, I've got him as he'd be like one of the best hitters on their team.
Yeah, he's over 100 ABs and still batting over 400. So
he's barreling up every single ball. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. I feel more optimistic than it seems like the pulse or what my interpretation is of the pulse of Tech fans. Some people just really aren't cut out for baseball. There's a reason why you play like 160 games in the pros. It's like we've actually we've like Sam Houston State and Iowa and Oklahoma State and TCU are pretty good, and we won series against every single one of those teams. It's like a if you play a football season and you play like 8 or 9 bowl teams and you go like 6-3 against them, you've probably got a pretty good team. And then I don't know what you want to count the playing at Stanford. That's almost like a win in my book there. And actually you split with West Virginia, but you play 3 there and 1 neutral site. That's actually kind of a win. Like in terms of RPI, the mythical RPI, like we gained more points than they did out of that, exchange. So
that brings up a good point. How do you value teams? So like in that scenario, yeah, you go 2-2 against West Virginia, but you beat them 5-3. They beat you 15-2. Like how much do you weigh that? Like you won one game, they won one game, but on aggregate, they were clearly the better team. How much does that factor into what you look at?
I don't have them as a better team. I mean, I made Tech a favorite against them and bet on Tech. Tech went off as the favorite against them, so a lot of people thought we were better than them at a neutral site with both. Now they were throwing backwards, so we were throwing Molina, they were not. So that's now that I probably would not have, if they were throwing their one and we were throwing our one, I probably had them a little bit, or like it'd be a 50-50. So I mean, I don't think West Virginia is like clearly better than us.
That's a good comment. Tech just beats Florida in sports, no matter the sport or the year. That's my analysis. I'm pretty pessimistic going into this regional. I haven't watched any Florida baseball, but just looking at their numbers. But having said that, when you played them in Omaha, I didn't think you were going to touch Brady Singer.
No, yeah, that team was more talented probably than this team.
Yeah. So I don't know. And that was at a neutral site. This one's at their home turf. But that looked pretty daunting. And you played them as a number 1 overall seed in 2016 and beat them. So,
and didn't they come to Lubbock? And we never played them because they just got 2 in a barbecue in a regional. I think Dallas Baptist knocked them out. Yeah, they were at a regional as like the 2 or the 3 seed. They were the last team in. It was when DBU was the 2 seed, I believe.
Yeah, did we have Army? Maybe
Army. So DBU beat them, and then I think maybe Army beat them. I think they went. We never saw them, but they left early. I mean, they just kind of struggled. I mean, when I was listening to their coach's press conference, and he's like, they were talking about asking him about pitching backwards, whether or not he's going to do it, and he was like, "Yeah, I think I might because we got Texas Tech, and like they just kind of, they beat us. It's an Omaha program. It's it's like a premier deal. It's a scary enough situation where we might be pitching backwards." And he's kind of a prick, their coach.
Kind of.
Yeah.
He's also had just generally good success against teams from Florida. So you're 2-1 against Florida in postseason baseball in the Tadlock era. You won the Coral Gables regional, and you retired Florida State's head coach in Omaha a few years ago.
We also remember when Gutierrez almost started a big fight in Florida State midweek. He hit like a grand slam at midweek game. And
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah.
I remember he got tossed in Coral Gables for dropping the ball in that guy's lap at first base, but I didn't remember the Florida State incident.
Yeah.
He's pretty feisty. Are you guys ready for mailbag? Any final thoughts on the regionals? Did we miss any?
I don't think so.
Did we pick a winner?
No. Florida? I think we talked into one.
It's probably who I'd take, especially if you throw your ace against a 6.25 ERA UConn team.
You're gonna. So what do you think Florida? Yeah. So I bet Florida is certainly hoping we throw our ace. So from that perspective, it would make you kind of pause and be like, should we be doing?
That's a good way. It's like the kickoff returns. So before they bumped it up to the 25-yard line, or maybe right after they bumped it up to the 25-yard line, Ohio State trained their kickers to land the ball right at the 1 before you could fair catch it inside the 25 because they wanted other teams to return kickoffs. Like they did not – most kickers, they say, hey, send it out the back of the end zone. We don't want to cover the kick. They trained their kickers to land it at the 1 so the other team would have to return the kickoff. And so that – I know we've had this debate and I think we're on opposite sides of this based on the numbers I've looked at, but I'm for never returning a kickoff unless you have a Jakeem Grant type player. And it goes to that, right? Like if the other team wants you to return the kickoff and not just take the free yards, what does that say about It's like sports books and bettors too. Like, why do they have a $10,000 minimum on NFL sides and a $50 minimum on Little League World Series sides? Like, which one do you think they want you to bet? So like Florida's manager probably is dying for us to throw Molina against UConn. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Especially teams are just afraid, like irrationally afraid of like lefties that throw in the 80s that have good numbers. You know, like nobody wants to see Molina. Like week in and week out, Florida has seen. It's just in the SEC is just insane. Like the average fastball is like 6 miles an hour. The average fastball thrown on the weekend is like 6 miles an hour harder than any other conference. It's like the gap is almost. It's like a different sport almost. I hate to say it, but
and that's why I kind of want to see K-Rob versus Florida. Just the way he pitched in Arlington, it's just like fastballs between 93 and 95, pounding the zone. I would love to see that against Florida. So I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself out of my previous.
And then we could throw Molina in the triple elimination game if we did that. If we did Robinson, we'll lose that one. We're losing this one. We'll have
you throw me against FAMU and win like 12-9 or something. Don't use any bullpen arms. I'll go throw 140 pitches against FAMU.
So just think about it though. Like you think we are, you think we are more likely to win this tournament by going through FAMU? Like the odds of us winning this tournament and also playing FAMU are just like it's not even a contingency worth like planning for.
No. I don't think that. But I think No, I'm telling you, I don't think that. Like you rephrased what I'm saying. I think if you do find yourself playing FAMU in the 0-1 game, no matter who pitched game one, I think that it is not wise to use your best remaining pitching against far and away the worst team in your bracket. Yeah. That's
not what you were saying earlier. We were talking about UConn. You didn't want to throw against UConn because then you're like, once we lose that game, we'll just be able to throw nobody against FAMU.
I think the phrase I used was trust your bats. And that you don't have to throw your best pitcher to beat UConn. But if you do lose to UConn, it's a nice backstop playing the worst team in the entire tournament.
In the driver's seat, basically.
No, you're going to get to 1-1 regardless. Do you want to get to 1-1 using up your two best starting pitchers or using up your third and fourth best starting pitchers? That's how I would phrase it. And if you start 1-0, then pitch Molina game 2 against Florida and let's get to 2-0 and win the damn thing.
All right.
But if you're 0-1 and we're trotting out Molina against FAMU, I'm like, what are we doing here?
I think we are way more likely to throw Molina against Florida, but not in the way you're talking. Like we could throw Robinson on Friday. Like that to me is much more in play than what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'd be out on that. And I was out on I don't know what you thought about the pitching strategy in game 2 against Oklahoma State in Arlington. But my exact words, if you didn't catch them in the Discord, when Ryan Free went out, I said, what the F are we doing? I said, WTF are we doing? And everybody's like, what do you mean? This is the right choice. And like, throw Beckel if you need to also. And I was like, no, absolutely do not do that. And it didn't end well for us. But I'm sure I galaxy brained that. And, I'm sure it was the right call, even though we lost anyway. Just like if we go 1-2 in this regional using up our best pitching early, y'all will tell me, oh, that was still the right thing to do. And I'll say, okay.
Y'all.
Rob's with me. He's just not backing me up. He doesn't want the smoke from Tech Hoops guy.
I want to pitch Kyle Robinson on Friday. I said that earlier.
I'd be for that. I could settle for.
Especially after you said that the fastball was way faster than the SEC. Yeah, throw the guy that throws 88 against Florida. They'll be whiffing. It's like pure changeups.
I wish we had Trendon Parrish I think he'd be the perfect game 1 starter if you still had him.
Yeah, Tim said you'd have to go another round or 2 for him to come back.
Interesting. Yeah, when that happened, I figured we wouldn't have him at all. So if you have him later, great.
Are you all ready for mailbag?
I think so. I just want to make sure that Tech Hoops guy doesn't think that I want to start 0-1 or that I'm planning on playing FAMU in the regional.
Or certainly like it's definitely in your mind. It's rattling around in there. Like, how can we come out of the 0-1? What is our best, you're very worried about who we're going to throw against Florida A&M. That much.
No, I'm not worried at all. That's why I said I'll pitch against Florida A&M. I'm worried about who pitches against Florida. And you're not playing Florida in the 0-1 game.
It'll be Robinson or Molina.
Yeah.
You could, Kyle.
I could live with either one.
Could happen.
Hopefully we beat UConn.
I want to play FAMU in the 1-0 game.
Yeah. That would be
That'd be sweet.
Catastrophic injury for Florida, wouldn't it?
Hey, so if it's 1-0 and Florida A&M is 1-0, who do you pitch in game 2?
Your best guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
2-0 is that important.
I could probably be persuaded there. But like if it's going well, I'd pull Molina after like 4 innings and say we might need you to close a game 3 or game 4.
Tadlock's just real conservative though. It just seems like
he is. It would be a catastrophic injury, and if that were the case, they should call our friends over at Barnett, Howard, and Williams. You know, Tech Hoops Guy is an attorney. It could be Barnett, Howard, Williams, and Tech Hoops Guy someday, maybe, if he wants to get back into the legal game. Sketchy, yeah. They handle all sorts of cases, criminal defense, catastrophic injury, certified for Title IX student litigation, one of the only law firms in the state of Texas with that certification. You can learn more at bhwlawfirm.com. They hope you never need them, but they're here for you if you do. Barnett, Howard, and Williams. Mailbag time?
Mailbag time, the Diversified Lenders mailbag. Turn your accounts receivable into cash. How long will it take Ludwig Aberg to win his first major? Wins the next one. First 2 years, right?
What?
He'll win one in the first 2 years?
How about we phrase it this way? Over under 1.5 majors in his career.
Over.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm looking at other guys who won that Ben Hogan Award. John Rahm.
Yeah.
One of the top 3 players in the world. I think he only has 1, correct? He's young. He's young, obviously. I think Victor Hovland from Oklahoma State does not have a major. Also young. But I don't think it's just this gimme. People thought that when Mito lost on the 18th hole, they're like, oh, he'll be back. And I was like, well, maybe. But like, how many times are you going to be leading on the 72nd hole of a major championship?
John Rahm has 2, and he's 28.
Okay. I thought he only had 1. But I don't follow golf that closely. Tech Hoops Guy, would you take over under 1.5 for Ludwig?
My initial reaction was under, just because it's so hard to win one, period, no matter who you are. But I mean, he is like the best. He is one of the best, and he's going to be playing so much earlier than maybe all these other guys, getting on tour so quick. I'd probably take the under.
Rob's hammering the over. I'd probably go under too, just not because I doubt his ability, but a lot of golfers don't win multiple majors.
Where does Ludwig rank on the GOAT list for Texas Tech? Is he on the Mount Rushmore of Tech athletes?
He really, I mean, it's really impressive. It's almost like having a guy that's like the Heisman for best player in the Heisman for like 2 years in a row.
Twice, yeah. And the Maxwell and the O'Brien, the Doak Walker, all of them.
So it'd be Cheryl Swoops, Sally Kipiego, Ludwig Aberg,
Mahomes.
Yeah, if you count pro credentials.
You have like Donnie Anderson.
Yeah.
EJ Holland.
Yeah, Donnie Anderson or Dave
EJ Holland. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's got a legit, it's just golf, non-team. It's hard to put, I don't know. It's hard
or Divine Odeduru. He won us a natty in track.
2 track and field athletes?
That's where we win. Like if Culver hit that shot, he'd be on there. But like if we're weighing all sports equally and not accounting for which ones have more fan interest and everything, I think those probably have to be your 4.
Start bench cut the Offspring, Allison Chains, and Stone Temple Pilots. I have no thoughts here.
Tech Hoops Guy, are you a 90s grunge fan?
No.
I would probably start Allison Chains, bench Stone Temple Pilots, and cut Offspring.
Oh, we're opposite then.
Well, that's because you have horrible taste in music.
I don't know about that. This is just for Kyle. Unless, are you a NASCAR guy, Tech Hoops guy?
No.
You're not a NASCAR guy. What are the best and worst NASCAR moments you remember seeing live?
I guess one of my favorites was the summer Daytona race. So it wasn't the Daytona 500. They go back and do a night race in the summer. And my favorite driver at the time, Dale Jr., won that race. But behind him, there was this huge wreck, and Austin Dillon, who somewhat ironically driving the 3-car, his car like flew into the air, into the catch fence, like in front of the fans. It's like this fireball, all that stuff. He gets out like just fine. And so I think and it was cool because NASCAR does a really good job. And I think Big 12 football is about to do this, but like in-car communications between the teams and like their spotters and crew chiefs makes for incredible content. And so Junior passes the finish line, like he just won a huge race, and he sees what happened behind him. And so he's like, he was like, is Austin okay? Does anybody know if Austin's okay? And he was fine, which like speaks to some of the safety enhancements and developments they've made in the sport. So that was pretty spectacular. Worst moment, I don't know. I guess it's like anytime a guy gets injured, I guess that goes against. It's pretty rare. It's like I said, they pound the wall at like 190 miles an hour and usually wind up okay. But I guess so. My favorite driver, Dale Jr., last race of the season, he needed to win to get into the playoffs, and Kyle Busch, who's like public enemy number one to a lot of NASCAR fans, wrecked him like in I think one of the last 3 or 5 laps, and so that was tough.
Sorry to hear that.
I take it back. Coolest moment ever. I didn't see it live at Martinsville, which if y'all don't know, that is shaped like a paper clip. Like it's straight, 180 degrees and straight. Like there's no wide turns or anything. And this guy, his name is Ross Chastain. He needed to pass like 3 guys on the last turn, which is impossible here, to make the next round of the playoffs. So what he does, he just like floors it and is like riding the outside of the concrete barrier around all the cars that are taking the inside lane. Is a literal video game move, and they actually banned it after the fact because they don't want guys trying that. But it was the most badass thing I've ever seen on a NASCAR track. It went like mega viral on YouTube. I can't believe he tried it and that it worked. But
I think
the video of it, yeah, it's insane stuff. Especially if you like know how that track normally runs and like look at all the other cars. That's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what happens on 99.9% of turns. And then this guy's just like literally riding the wall. It's pretty cool.
Did it work?
Yeah, he made the transfer. He passed enough guys, and how pissed off the guy he needed to pass was one of the cars that he passed. Like there's a point system. Every car you pass is a point. And one of the guys he passed was one of the cars he needed to move ahead of. Like how pissed off are you if you think there's no way, like just because nobody's ever taken that route before, and then like you just see him fly by you on the outside. I'd be so like, where in the hell did that guy come from?
Yeah,
but it worked.
You got to risk it to get the biscuit, man.
Yeah.
Our one NASCAR fan says solid NASCAR discussion here.
Yeah, Hyatt knows. He likes NASCAR.
Hyatt's a NASCAR guy.
I'm surprised you don't bet NASCAR, Tech Hoops guy.
It's tough. There's some smart people that bet it. Because it's they run. You know more than me, but they race laps before the race, right?
Yeah.
So like when those times like populate, the market just goes crazy based on this time. So if you've got access to that information, you can quickly, and those are the people that win. It's also very easy. That's a really good way to get kicked off sports books. Start pounding their NASCAR matchups and NASCAR outrights.
Yeah.
I'm going to save the rest of these questions for our football episode because it's a bunch of football questions.
Are we allowed to talk a little bit of football here on the Republic of Football podcast feed?
Yeah,
while we have Tech Hoops guy.
Just an hour in. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Do you have time, Tech Hoops guy?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. 20 more minutes maybe.
The main question I had for you is, what do you think about UConn as an expansion candidate?
I was actually just talking to Ben Golan, and once I saw that, and Taylor Beatles, like UConn, Colorado, right? I mean, it's like from a betting perspective, the league will it's like the most interesting league. There's so many really distinct venues from like really extreme altitudes and like dry to now we've got like some really humid locations and then the travel. I mean, it's unlike any other conference really. And like, adding UConn and Colorado it just makes it even more unique. I have a feeling that I'll be able to like really capitalize on like college baseball and that in the new Big 12, like some of the totals, I just it's intriguing, I guess, is my reaction to that.
Because
I don't know about UConn as a football program. They're I mean, their facilities and everything is just absolute garbage, I think.
Yeah, that's where I don't know if they suck at football just because like they'll always suck at football, or do they suck at football because they've never invested in it and could entrance into a Power 5 league assist with that?
Yeah, I bet so.
So I don't know. They were not really on my radar just because everybody's been talking about the Four Corners.
I'd be way more excited about Colorado just because that'd be like an auto trip going to that game every year. And plus, with the benefit of this time, I'm sure Leach won't lose to a 0-8 team as a 20-point underdog. So we won't have that going on. I'm sure like we might actually win games up there.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Sure would.
That was the only thing I feel like Tech Hoops guy had some good realignment thoughts on like UCF and Houston back when that news broke, and so just wanted his 2 cents on the UConn chatter.
If it was UConn, Colorado, and the Arizonas, I would be all in.
I would take that. You'd have a pot of 4 out west, BYU plus the 3 you mentioned, 4 in the Eastern time zone, and 8 right up the middle. That'd be good for now, and then you wait on some ACC teams, and then whenever that opens up, take 4 or however many, and you've already got teams out there. That'd be perfect.
Prosper. That's all I got.
Same here.
Tech Hoops guy, final thoughts?
I hope we win on Friday, man.
Me too. You really have to start 2-0 if you want to win these things.
This is, last year when I was running the stuff, I had Notre Dame as a slight favorite to win the Georgia Southern Regional, but like there really wasn't a big difference. And like I don't know if the team was feeling pressure. I wasn't really feeling pressure, but it's to me, I have like a sense of, okay, beat UConn, and I'm like completely fine because like it just gives us a game where anything can happen. We're playing a team that's just so much. They're so good. I mean, they really are at home, and you really have a chance of winning that game. I know as much as people don't want to hear it, but it's baseball. Like it's 2 college programs that are Power 5 teams. One of them is going to have like a 30% chance of winning at least, And so comparing it to Statesboro last year, it was like, okay, we should beat this team. We should beat Georgia Southern. Like we're like the best team in this field. There was almost like some pressure or something, but I just don't feel that at all with this one. It's almost like beat UConn and just like let's see what happens against Florida.
That was a weird regional because the 2 best teams were the 2-3. They had to play each other game 1, and that's that never happens. Even if the 3 seed is better than the 2 seed, like the 1 seed is better than both of them, or should be. So that was a brutal draw. I mean, really for Notre Dame as well. It didn't wind up mattering because they got through it, but they felt like they were a host snub, and then they're sitting there with Texas Tech as the 3 they're paired with. So and then you lost to them twice by 1 run. So that was frustrating. There's a lot of parity in that regional.
Yeah.
All right. Want to close this out there, Kyle?
Oh yeah, love y'all.
Y'all been getting any more internet fights lately?
No, I don't. Are we beefing with anybody right now, Rob?
Just the Tech fans that think we should stop being Kansas State podcast.
Yeah,
but email.